Right now we have about 10 miles of track on the ground. Maybe in 20 years, there'll be 20 or 30 miles of track now.
Oregon, renowned for breathtaking mountain scenery, including Crater Lake, is no slouch when it comes to big-time railroading. It is also the site of spectacular miniature live steam railroading at the Train Mountain Museum in Chiloquin, Oregon, the largest 7 1/2-inch scale railroad empire in the world. Train Mountain, on over 2,000 acres, where steam and diesel, scales standard gauge and narrow gauge, internal combustion and electric motive power, rod engines and geared stem winders, all coexist and run quite happily on the same track, spurred on by the camaraderie and pride in their craftsmanship, which brings modelers in the larger scales together. Everything for running small trains is big at Train Mountain, including the 18-track preparation and servicing area. Here we see live steamers preparing their steeds, which each has fastidiously replicated in miniature for long runs over the main line. Additional equipment is arriving for the live steam meet. A scissors lift transfer table aids the unloading. Just look at these beauties, led off by Boston and Albany number 402 of 466T, built by Barney Barningham. Or Cal Tinkham's Virginia and Truckee 440 Inyo, straight from Reno, Nevada. Articulated steam in 1 1/2-inch scale. The Union Pacific is miniaturized in diesel power, as number 3344 makes all the authentic sounds as it moves out with the train. This is Doug Chansey of Arroyo Grande, California, and the Bitter Creek and Western Railroad. This trolley may be tiny, but it has a roof and seats 3 non-miniature people. Everywhere we look, preparations are underway for the large meet on the giant miniature railroad at Train Mountain. Tracks are being laid out and spiked in place for the many tracks which will radiate from Train Mountain's custom-built 40-foot turntable. No sooner is the train clear than the end is raised hydraulically and the table starts to turn. Grant Ellingson of Molalla, Oregon, designed and built the turntable. With the turntable in position, another steamer moves onto the structure. The articulated 2882 is next on the turntable.
Well, did you look at my time saver switch yard? Yeah. Are we going to start building switches or what? I don't know. You didn't sound like you were too convinced. giving you on the sales meeting. You weren't giving me buying signals.
I'm around the loop person.
Well, I'm going to tell you what. Running by him.
The tempo picks up. Steaming up is underway in earnest. Look at all that polished brass and the wealth of details. A Southern Pacific Atlantic-type locomotive steams onto the turntable. Right behind is a Shay-geared locomotive. Cal Tinkham has 2 Virginia and Truckee locomotives. He shows off the intricate detail of 10-wheeler number 26. Trolley power in 7.5-inch gauge. We will see more of this freight motor very shortly. The combined odor of propane and coal smoke are quite evident on the ready tracks. Bill McCready of Milwaukee, Oregon, has his Camas Prairie Railroad consolidation all set to go. Bob Cummings II, editor of Scale Steam Pictorial, was there with his mogul. Our video camera peers into its scale firebox. Bill McCready's Camas Prairie 280. A spotless vintage mogul, complete with brass boiler bands.
Unloaded it and put it on the seating bay and then went down to the motel. I came back and it was completely covered with people all the way around.
The Boston and Albany Railroad operated a fleet of Schenectady-built 466 tank double-enders in Boston commuter service. Bill McCready and Barney Barningham almost completely scratch-built number 402. Barney, from Boise, Idaho, runs his Boston and Albany engine onto the Train Mountain turntable. Rick Zobeline's Yosemite Valley mogul, number 98, gets polished. With the Pacific in the background, we look at some of the servicing equipment at Train Mountain.
Well, I bought it from a friend of mine. That's in attention.
Steam pressure is rising on the ready tracks all around the turntable. How many decades has it been since all this concentrated activity could be seen on a real railroad? Meanwhile, plans are made to run on the main line.
Just dump one day a week up on the B&T.
On the full size?
Yeah, on the tourist train at Virginia City.
Well, this is oil fired?
This is oil fired.
And it's, but it has a superheater on it and
Superheater,
feed water heater, and a larger
it's a
firebox.
Larger firebox, and it's really a wagon top boiler. It's not a fake.
A Lilliputian 240 pulls a short freight train onto the turntable. This is Doug Chansey operating his diesel switcher. Dan Andrews describes the 40-foot manual and hydraulic turntable at Train Mountain.
The big railroad, forward and reverse on the turntable, and if you see the little legs down there, this is just up and down, just that easy. That's all there is to it. And the secret of it is, if anybody comes along there and moves those little white spots down there on the ground, they're going to be in big trouble, because you'll line up that little angle iron by that wheel on that white spot, and that lets you know that you're more or less in the right place. Here we go. I didn't show you one of the most important features of this thing. Right down here hidden is my horn, just like the big one.
Has an option of using a piece of square tubing.
We inspect a shay, complete with a varnished wood cab.
Not enough room for a ton of diameter just for an inner race. We got a 5/8 axle stuff to start with.
I built up a set of, I'm sorry. I had this cough ever since I had a cold about March. A set of the Cannonball arch bar tracks.
An interurban electric passenger car from the Pacific Electric Railway heads out onto the main line. Roger Goldman had a chassis for consolidation and other scale steam locomotive parts and pieces on display. This includes the undercarriage for a 4664 Challenger, one mighty impressive piece of running gear. Check out that craftsmanship.
It's certainly original line. How did you get that approached hole so that you don't have a rotation?
I have more trouble with the injector than I do with the actual pump. All I do with the injectors, generally if I've got high calcium content in the water where I'm running, I just take a can of WD-40 and shoot it up the injector. That frees it up, blows the calcium off the ball check valve, and works fine.
A Scale Pacific comes off the turntable. A Santa Fe F7 diesel in the famous war bonnet paint scheme is piloted by Paul Chenoweth of Albuquerque. The Green Frog camera sets out for a ride on the miles of 7 1/2-inch gauge track on Train Mountain. Those scale tank cars are full of propane to be set out at the score of real railroad cabooses which serve as visitors' living quarters at Train Mountain. Look at that beautiful stretch of track easing into a gentle curve. Much of the railroad on Train Mountain was put down in the early to mid-1990s, with work continuing right up to the present time on this rapidly expanding railroad. Tracks join the main line and branch off at many points along our ride. We go into the hole for water and a rest, and are overtaken by a diesel train. Next past us is a Northern Pacific covered wagon. It is followed by a Southern Pacific diesel. Note the variety of riding cars. Big Steam Power puts in an appearance in the form of a 2882. We are soon underway again, complete with all the right steam, sights, sounds, and smells. Another steamer comes in off a branch and falls in right behind us. Our rail ramble around Train Mountain continues. We are coming up to the camping area at Train Mountain as we roll over one of the many road crossings and through a yard area. A turnout is thrown to get us off the main line. It's time to water the Iron Horse. With its thirst quenched, our locomotive is back out on the main line, literally clipping off the miles. is some retaining wall on the left side of the track. We pass a two-man track crew checking the smoothness of the track. The track is being raised and realigned as readings of the existing level and tangent are taken off the special track-mounted instruments. We're underway again. We are coming back into the main yard and gathering area at Train Mountain. More track is going down, radiating out from that impressive 40-foot turntable. One of the main buildings at Train Mountain forms a backdrop. We soon pass one of the many small loaders used to deliver pea-sized crushed rock to the track crews. Buildings, many of them, small and large, miniature and real. What a delightful illusion. That's a covered coaling trestle about 5 tracks over, with a yard full of railroad cars behind it. Now that is some yard throat, of which any railroad should be proud, regardless of its size or scale. We pass a steam train on the left. And a Wild West town on the right. Tracks everywhere. We soon come up behind another miniature train, but this is real railroading, complete with cinders and smoke. This is western Oregon, with its forested, almost wilderness appearance, near Chiloquin, population 620, located about 25 miles north of Klamath Falls, and an equal 25 miles south of Crater Lake. Our wilderness reverie is broken by passing more scale buildings at Train Mountain. We take a siding, and what should soon pass us but an electric trolley locomotive, as its distinctive air horn splits the wind. Hot on his markers is Rich Ullen and his exquisite narrow-gauge Mason Bogie 266 tank locomotive. In an interesting twist, standard-gauge live steamers are built to 1 1/2 inch scale, while 3-foot gauge engines are built in 2 1/2 inch scale. They both run together quite amicably on the same 7 1/2 inch gauge track. Future track will penetrate this tunnel. Coming up on our left is a very unminiature highway tractor pulling a lowboy trailer, redistributing a little more of the landscape for an expanding train mountain. A very real front-end loader is at work, starting the redistribution of more crushed rock and fill for the rapidly lengthening road beds. A work crew of Train Mountain volunteers are working to expand the yard area as another load of fill goes down. Our ride continues. A real road crossing with real flashing signals. This impressive log fencing surrounds much of the Train Mountain complex. One of a whole fleet of full-scale cabooses, which are being converted to visitors' living quarters at Train Mountain. A scale sawmill is under construction. We are coming up on more of the caboose guest houses. This substantial building houses many of the indoor activities at Train Mountain. Why let a little rain slow down activities? Shades of the broad way of the Pennsylvania Railroad. We meet a steam locomotive and a Pacific Electric interurban trolley car. Finally, we roll back into the yard. The trolley freight motor backs into a siding. The fabled South Park's last Mason bogie was scrapped during World War II. But now you can see and enjoy Rick Ullen's recreation, accurate in every miniature detail, including a varnished wood cab. Jim Maples operates Carl Hovenice's SP-462, doubleheading with Harry Haas and his Santa Fe 484. Both Jim and Harry are from Tehachapi, California. Harry brought his entire train of express cars. That is Bob Dyer of Montana riding as conductor at the rear. The man behind Train Mountain, Quentin Breen, describes the work and volunteer workers who have contributed to the success of his and their dreams.
Coster S3 Electric, which is around here somewhere, on a short train. And I started looking for a place to run it. And looked at various train clubs. And I realized that train clubs seem to have to move about once every 20 years because they're in a public park. And after a while, you know, some other use is a higher and better use for that property. And so they have to build in a new location. I looked in Northern California, and then I found Chiloquin, Oregon. And the virtue of Chiloquin, Oregon is that there's a lot of land, cost relatively low. And I started with the first parcel, and it started getting tracked down. And the thing has just kind of grown. Right now we have about 10 miles of track on the ground. Have space for quite a bit more. And it's become kind of a train camp. This past work week, Monday we had 35 volunteers. And Tuesday we had 40 volunteers. Wednesday about 45. Thursday somewhere in the 70s. And now we have a meet with 60 engines. We've had to expand the track here by putting stub switches. So instead of having one engine, we can have 3 engines. They'll have to trade off on the steaming days. But we should have capacity by the year 2000 when we're going to be a host for the IBLS meet. I think we'll have capacity for about 200 engines. And I think that's the number in the hobby that might be here in the year 2000.
The live steam faithful gather for dinner and a meeting with Quentin inside the large building.
Anyone who can't hear me, raise his or her hand. Doug Chansey, you can't hear me? All right. What we've been doing and what we weren't able to get done. We had a very wet spring. And when it's a wet spring, that means that you can't do heavy construction. The next road, from that corner this way, coming all the way across, then you guys...
With the formalities wrapped up, it is time to roll into the gathering dusk. The second unit out is Quentin Breen's, with his Amtrak motif train carrying VIPs.
This schedule here.
It has been a long and exceedingly satisfying visit for the railroaders and their families at Train Mountain. They have shown off and savored some of the finest masterpieces of real live miniature railroading. They have met old friends and made new friends. They have all had a grand time. Isn't that what it's all about?